Hey Diversilinguals! Today we are going to talk about raising multilingual kids. And to talk about that, I invited Tetsu Yung. He has a channel called Ask Tetsu, and he already delivered some speeches, for example, in the Polyglot Conference, in which he explained how he could raise 4 kids in a multilingual environment. So I hope you like this episode. This episode is totally in English. We are going to talk a little bit in Portuguese at the end of the episode, but be prepared, and I hope you can improve your English as well with us. So let's go. Hello, diverse linguists. I'm your host, Diego, and today we are going to talk about raising multilingual kids with Tetsu Yung. Tetsu has an YouTube channel called Ask Tetsu, and he already delivered some speeches about raising multilingual kids. Welcome to the show, Tetsu.
Hello, Diego, and hello to your audience. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, before we dive in, I will ask you to follow Diversilingua on the social media. This is a simple action that can make our show even bigger. So now coming back to our beloved guest, Tetsu, could you briefly talk about yourself, Tetsu?
Sure. Is this a 3-hour interview? Where do I start? Myself, I am multilingual, so I'll start there. I grew up in Taiwan from a Taiwanese father and a Japanese mother. And in Taiwan, there's various languages like Taiwanese, Hakka, in addition to Mandarin, which is the official language. And I went to an American school in Taiwan. So there's already 4 or 5 languages as I was growing up. And these are all the same techniques with a modern twist that I employ for my kids, which we'll be discussing maybe a bit later. So I grew up in Taiwan, but given my mother is Japanese, I used to go to Japan all the time. I spoke Japanese with my mother. And then I came to Canada after my primary school. So that's when I went to and not just Canada, but in Quebec, where it's the French is the official language. And I went to a French high school. And one thing led to another, high school, university, and all the way to graduate school. I was here. Eventually, the whole family came over, immigrated. We're all Canadians now. Yeah, so this is where I call home. I would travel the world, but this is my base here in Canada. That's in a nutshell how I was exposed to quite a lot of languages. Even when I came to Canada, I learned French, and then I learned Spanish on my own, just traveling and sort of independently. And then I actually formally tried to learn German and Italian at the university. I got to my intermediate levels. I got my A's, but I certainly do not consider myself fluent in these languages. And one last one I picked up along the way is Portuguese. Just a bit of traveling. Posso falar pouco.
Nice. So we can give it a try at the end of the episode.
Sure. Yeah, that's the time to embarrass myself. And so that's if you count it all, I think it's all in all, to different degrees, 10 languages that I've been exposed to. And I always say I speak 5 fluently, which is English, French, Japanese, Mandarin, and Spanish. That's when people ask me, how many languages do you speak? That's the number I give.
So how many?
5.
5.
5 is the one the official number that I give people.
Oh, impressive. So first of all, I think you've already talked about the language that you speak, but how about your kids? I know that you have 4 kids. Is that right?
Correct. 4 kids. My oldest is almost 12 in about a month and a half. My youngest is 3 or 4. She just turned 4 last month. Can't keep track of them. There's just too many.
Yeah.
And so the 4 kids, we raised them in 5 languages, and those are the 5 that I speak fluently. Although I don't teach them all 5 by myself. So I speak Mandarin with the kids. So that's number 1. My wife is Japanese, so she would speak Japanese with the kids. My parents also live with us. So my father is Taiwanese, so he speaks Mandarin with the kids. And my mother's Japanese. She speaks Japanese with the kids. And here in Quebec, they go to school in French. And we also hire au pairs, which are babysitters who live in the house with us. So we hire them from Mexico. So they're Spanish. They have to speak Spanish with the au pair all the time. And finally, English is the only one that we don't have a structured program for them, but there's just lots and lots of exposure, whether it's YouTube or some friends who are Anglophones here in our town. Their cousins also like to speak English, even though they're Francophones. They like to speak English, so they pick up English like really by themselves, and they speak it to a very high degree. In fact, some of them would say English is their first language. So
Yeah,
so
and I think that nowadays it's easier to get in touch with the English because of the internet and everything.
Exactly. So that's why we, I guess, put the least emphasis on English.
Okay.
We do all these things with the au pairs and traveling and for the other languages, especially Japanese and Mandarin. These are the hardest languages, I think, for them.
Nice. So I've watched a speech that you gave at the Polyglot Conference online.
Okay.
And in that speech, you talked about your method to raise multilingual children. You have mentioned about one person, one language. Could you explain that a little bit? I think that you have already gave a hint.
Well, yes. Well, there you go. So let me maybe go deeper, a little bit deeper. So obviously, I told you guys, myself and my father, we speak Mandarin to the kids. My wife and my mother speak Japanese to the kids. So these are, people that are assigned specific languages to the kids. So the kids have to switch around, but we, as a designated speaker of a specific language, we don't switch around. Just because they know that I speak French or Japanese or any other languages, they are accustomed to or used to speaking to me in English. I mean Mandarin, and only Mandarin. So much so that we developed this weird feeling if we speak another language, and so that's what we aim for. And they go to school in French, so obviously they speak to their friends in French, and then they au pair that I mentioned coming in from Mexico. They always speak Spanish with them. They've born into this environment where they know that they have to switch around, changing languages depending on the person they are speaking to, and it's been working wonders for now. Knock on wood, we've had very good success, starting from my oldest to the youngest.
Oh, yes. I think that is better for them because they don't get confused about the context, because they know that in some specific contexts they will speak a different language.
Well, the key point is when you speak to a person, you're building a relationship, and they're just accustomed to building a relationship with that person in that language, and that's there's that very, very strong association with the person and the language, and they don't have to think about it. They could be speaking Japanese with their mother for the past hour, and if I walk into the room, they turn around, it's immediately Mandarin, because that's the most natural thing for them. There are other techniques that people use, for example, like time and place, where a specific day is like Spanish, a specific day is another language, etc. And those, depending on your living context, that may work well for you. For somebody like me, I'm just not very good. I just don't pay attention too much, and I'll have to think about, hey, what is it? Is it Tuesday? Where are we? Are we in the kitchen? You know, that kind of thing. And it's a little hard intellectually, I think, for me to keep track. So and the kids too, I suppose, you know, it's if there's more parameters that you have to remember, I think it adds a level of complexity that may cause issues with the kids.
Yeah, I have a question regarding this.
Yep.
Once I heard that bilingual kids usually they have to have more time to speak to first speak in a
Yes.
language
Yes.
specifically.
Yep.
Did that happen with your kids?
Let me see if I understand your question. Do you mean that they start, like they need more time, more
To
input
speak, yeah.
to start speaking? Like, do they have a delay in speech?
Yeah.
There, people say that, but there's no proven case of this. Like, as in, there's no, it's not something that has been shown in studies to be accurate. Not, you know, it could be true. I don't think there are studies that said it's not the case. But I think the fact that every child has his or her pace to learn languages, you know, there's a very wide range of this natural starting point to speak. Some start, you know, before 1 year old. Some start, you know, after 3 or 4. So I think from 1 to about almost to 4 years old is considered like a normal range to be able to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's even some people writing about, I think Einstein was a very slow starter. I don't know if that's true, but I've not really. But you know, individual differences, I think, is very wide. And I have 4 kids. One started my oldest and my youngest started pretty quickly, like just a little past 1 year old. And then they've already started saying things, you know, just a few words, but they've had, you know, with those few words, they can convey their thoughts. Whereas my oldest daughter, she took quite a while before being able to string, you know, sentences together. So much so that, you know, even though I was very confident, myself and my wife, we were very confident in our methods. My daughter was a case that really made us question it the most. You know, it's this case that sort of shook our confidence, so much so that we actually did seek out a speech pathologist just to make sure that, you know, she's not having any issues with her speech. And the conclusion was, well, I mean, the conclusions was very simple. She just the speech pathologist just said, you're teaching them too many languages. Okay, tell me something I don't know, right? And she said, well, from a normal perspective for a French-speaking kid, you know, because we're in Quebec, she is slightly behind in speech, but not enough for intervention. So let's monitor this for a few months to maybe a year, is what she said.
Right.
But literally 3 or 4 weeks after that encounter, that meeting with the speech pathologist, my daughter's speech exploded. Literally, like she just started talking, and there was no stopping her after that. And she very quickly caught up to her peers and even surpassed her peers. So, you know, it was literally just a few weeks. I mean, I don't know if meeting a speech pathologist can initiate something or trigger something like that, but I think it's just a pure coincidence. All the other 3 was very normal. They just started speaking. So there's no real issue with teaching them many languages at the same time. From my perspective, with my with my sample size of 4.
Yeah, yeah, but maybe it's a matter of personality or something like this.
Sure. Yes. Yes. There's so many factors that go into communicate. That when a kid starts communicating, that may or may not have anything to do with linguistics or languages per se. It can be just the way they are, raised, the different people that they are interacting with. So
Yeah,
it's multifactorial, I would say.
yeah. So I saw that you asked a question to some people at the Polyglot Conference,
Okay.
and I'd like to ask you the same question.
All right.
What is the most important ingredient in raising multilingual kids?
Yes. I love this. I always try to put this in when I do my shows and whatnot. And it's not directly related to languages. It's not about grammar. It's not about number of hours to study. I think the most important thing that you need to build before anything, language or otherwise, is a strong relationship, a trusting relationship with your kids. I really spend a lot of time with the kids. I even have these sessions every few weeks or so. I would sit down with one child at a time, and make sure that we're communicating and give them a safe space to say what they think, about life in general, school, friends. And my older kids are now going in, almost going into their teens, so some sensitive topics, the sexuality, the finance, all these things that I think they're old enough to understand, but not old enough to practice. But I just want to get them used to thinking about these things. So I have these sessions. It's kind of like one-on-one sessions. I do that at my company with my subordinates. So these are just something I thought, hey, I should do this with my kids too. Really communicate and make sure, not. It's not like they did something wrong, you're getting mad at them and you're giving them a speech and telling them about values and morality. And in those situations, in those high tension situations, it's difficult to have a very good open heart communication. So I really block out a time every few weeks or so, sit down with them and talk about things. And that's when I talk a lot about values and ethical things, about life in general, happiness, career also, things that they could, they're like 10, 12 years old, but it's good to start early. They say, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be this or that, and that's good. Have your dream. Slowly, as the discussions go, there will be more and more complexity before they go to university. I'd like them to know why they're going into university and studying which major, for what reason, and that kind of discussion is not like, I feel it's too late when they're already at the age of selecting a university.
Yeah.
So I start that very early with very simple stuff and just build up over time. Make this a habit.
Yeah, I saw that interesting when I watched some of your videos. And for me, I was wondering that maybe I can put that in practice with my wife. I don't have kids, but it would be something good to have with my wife.
Absolutely. I mean, I do it with my wife also once in a while. This is, you're so busy every day, running around working, and if you don't block out this, it can be 10 minutes, it can be an hour, but block that time out and make it intentional. And I jot down stuff in my daily routine. Every once in a while, when I think about something, I should talk to my son about this, or I should talk to my wife about this, I just jot it down, and don't have to talk about it at that specific moment, but you have this time blocked off for communication purposes. And those are the moments where you're not emotionally volatile, right? You're under very calm circumstances, and you're talking very frankly, honestly, openly about various topics, and good fun stuff too. Those are the moments where I sort of gather together all the things that we appreciate about each other. The kids, how we appreciate that they're helping out in the house, or they're working hard towards whatever exam, or their sports. It's that moment where we really sit down and make each other heard.
Yeah, nice.
And to bring it, sorry about that. Bring it back to languages, though. The question about why this is important for languages is that you can tell them all about English is important for your career or this or that on the spot. When you want them to study a target language, it's not going to go in if they don't like it. If they don't, and if they don't have a trusting relationship with you, they're not going to hear it as really as advice for them. So my point about really building a strong, trusting relationship with them is that they will trust you and trust that what you say is good for them. And so even if they don't like a specific thing, because daddy or mommy said it, and because they trust daddy or mommy, then they will have more tendency to actually execute what they think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And that's why I say it's not just languages; it's everything. School, sports. What you make them eat broccoli. It's like if they don't like the food, and you tell them because it's good for you, do they really feel that you have their best interest? And all that comes from these type of discussions, I think.
So I was watching some of your videos, and I also saw that I think it was in your speech during the Polyglot Conference that you mentioned that you guys try to change from one country to another in order to give your children an opportunity to have contact with natives.
Yeah.
But for people that cannot do something like this, what would be your advice?
So yeah, just to give some context to that, what we do is we live in Canada, just outside of Montreal, and in order to really strengthen their Mandarin and Japanese, every year we take the kids to Japan for 2 months and then to Taiwan for 2 months, and basically I, myself, and my wife, we would just go there, be with them over the 4 months. Now I can do that because I work from home. I work online. I take my computer with me and my phone, and I can work from anywhere in the world. The same goes for my wife. And this is a work style that we chose in order to have this flexibility. I understand not everybody has that flexibility. And all I can say with that is there are sacrifices you need to make in life. You just can't have it all. Some things cost more, some things require sacrifice, and we sacrifice certain parts of our life in order to have this type of flexibility. This is planned over time because we value the languages so much. And these are Japanese and Mandarin, which are very difficult languages to acquire to begin with for our kids who are growing up in an English French environment. We decided that this was necessary. It may not be as necessary if you're trying to learn languages that are closer, maybe like French and Spanish. Maybe you don't need to do that in order to bring it to a high level, or maybe you don't expect your kids to learn to such a high level. It's all it's all things that you have to weigh in your I guess project or that you're trying to do with your kids. where are languages in everything that they have to do in life, in school and other activities. Language is just part of the whole thing. For us, it's important. It's very important, and so we invest accordingly. This is obviously very costly, not just in terms of money, but in terms of time and like I said, flexibility with the job. You have to pick a job that arrange your working life accordingly. Can you do that? Well, I think anybody can. It's a decision. It may take you a little more time, but there's lots of jobs that are online now, right? So I don't think I don't think you should say you cannot do it. I think it's more of a you don't want to do it, and that's fine. You don't want to do it based on the costs, right? I can't earn as much if I change my career to a web designer, for example. I'm not a web designer, but but I'm just saying, if you wanted to, you can. Do you really want it so much that you're willing to sacrifice your career for the languages for your kids? Is it required? There's many things, obviously, again, to think about, to think through. But if you want to, I think there's a way to do it. The question is, how much is the cost? How much are you willing to sacrifice in your lifestyle? And is it worth it?
Okay. Yeah. And talking a little bit about your kids and the relationship that you built with them, have you learned some technique regarding speaking other languages with them?
Well, I wouldn't say I'd learned techniques from them in terms of learning languages, but what I learn every day from them is, well, like adjustments that I have to make in the way I raise them. Languages obviously is just part of it. There are moments where I think about how to act in public, for example, because we're in Quebec. It's accepted that people speak French here, but I speak Mandarin with the kids. So if I'm in front of other parents, in front of my kids, am I embarrassing them by speaking Mandarin to them or not? That I think about that kind of stuff, and I learn from them. In that, one kid, my oldest, perhaps would be very open and not be embarrassed at all. Like I could try to be discreet, but he's shouting from the other side of the room to me in Mandarin. So I realized that, okay, he's tougher than maybe my daughter or my younger boy. So that's the adjustment I have to learn from them on a daily basis, to adjust everything, my actions.
Yeah, I think that we usually learn something with those exchange of knowledge. Yeah. And now I'd like to ask you if you have to give 3 tips for those who are listening to us right now and are willing to learn a new language. What would it be in your perspective?
To learn languages?
3 tips. Yeah,
3 tips for language learners, not for raising multilingual kids.
No, for language learners. But you can also give us 3 tips for raising multilingual kids as well.
Okay, well, the first one I think is very applicable for anything you want to learn, or even for raising multilingual kids, is to find your why. Why are you doing it? That why will dictate how much effort you're willing to put into it. Because if you say, I'm learning a language for fun, just to be able to travel, then chances are going to a native level or native-like level will be extremely difficult, because it's not easy to learn languages, and it's not easy to raise multilingual kids. So, and that is fine. Just be honest about your why. If you're learning it because your partner speaks a specific language, you already have a much higher motivation. right? So if I want to build a very strong relationship with my wife or my husband, and she's not good in English, then I want to learn, whatever language that it is that she speaks to a very, very high level. That's a very strong motivation, and chances are you'll put in the work and put in the effort. So find out that why and plan accordingly, because some things will cost more. Some things will cost more in money. Some things will cost more in time. Either way, there's you have to strategize and make it happen. And the third point, what's the third point? Let me think. You have the why and the third point, in terms of raising multilingual kids. This is something I mentioned earlier. It's don't focus just on the language, but the relationship. That's the starting point, because there are so many things that you cannot decide, that you have to influence them to do. So that's quite different from being a language learner yourself, because if you're a language learner, your motivation is the only thing that counts. You go as far as you want. Whereas children, you have to influence them to do what you want them to do. So you have to build a strong bond, a trusting relationship, so that they will listen to what you want, what you're saying to them. And so that's the third point if it's for raising multilingual kids. For language learners, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not a super language learning guru like the Richard Simcotts and the Luca Lampariello. These guys, they're like the goats of this industry, right? For me, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a multilingual environment, and so I speak, the languages that I speak them to a very high level, but I don't speak 50 or 30 or even though I say I speak 10 to various degrees. 5 are the only ones that I really put on my name tag when I go to these events, and these are the ones that I'm confident in: English, French, Mandarin, Japanese, and Spanish. These are the ones that I am confident in, and I can probably live and work in these countries if I ever have to. And these 5, the only one that I learned by myself is Spanish. And Spanish is not the hardest language to learn if you already have English and French. So I don't know. Am I in a place to really give people advice on learning languages? I can tell you how I learned Spanish. I bought myself a little tourist book and then a set of cassettes. In those days, we were still using cassettes, and I put that in the car, and I just rolled every day in, day out. I put it when I went to sleep. I just put it by my bed, and it just played and played and played. And it's just massive amount of input, and some reading, some self-directed, reading and instruction, and that's it. I've taken one course, but when I took that course, I was already in the advanced course. So, and that was only for 3 weeks. Other than that, I have no formal education in Spanish, but I still consider myself fluent in that language. This is my fifth language. So I guess you just got to be motivated and put in the work and do lots and lots and lots of reading and input, as Stephen Krashen would say. It's lots of comprehensible input, and voluntary reading, I think it's the term that he uses. Read stuff that you like, so that you will be interested, you will be drawn in, and that will be compelling. It's a word that he likes to use a lot. Material that is compelling.
All right. So now I'd like to ask you if you have already been in Brazil, and
yes,
if you have plans to go there.
I went in 2002.
No.
Yeah, I don't have plans to go there, but definitely, if I get an opportunity to go, I would love to. Maybe maybe find some clients or some partner, collaborators, and go to South America. I'd love to do that. So I am, actively searching out opportunities around the world for collaboration for my work, because I just opened my company this year. So I'm in that stage where I'm looking around, and hey, hopefully I find somebody in Brazil and get to go back and go to the cities I went to. I went to Sao Paulo, went to Ouro Preto, Horizonte. I took a flight from Horizonte to Salvador de Bahia, and then actually
Belo Horizonte.
Yeah, Belo Horizonte,
Yeah.
yeah, and then Jimmy Mello's there, I think. I didn't know him at that time, but and then I went to Rio de Janeiro, and that's it. Yeah.
The city of our co-host Renata.
Renata is from Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a wonderful time. Oh my God.
In Ouro Preto, by the way, it
Yeah.
looks like a Portuguese countryside
Oh
village.
yeah. Okay. It's a very colonial architecture, and they told me it's a great place to start the Carnaval, because that's when I went in February of 2002. And my birthday is in February, and right in the Carnaval.
In
So,
the Carnival,
I love
so
much fun.
For me, the best one is in Recife and
Recife, and where?
Olinda.
Olinda, where's that?
Olinda is close to Recife. Is the city nearby.
Okay.
And I love the carnival there, because they usually wear costumes. So it's so happy, and also you can see a lot of families on the streets. So
nice. I don't know how the carnivals are today. Are they just as, because I heard lots of people, they don't like the carnival for so long. Every day everything's shut down. But as a tourist, I had a blast. That was so much fun.
Oh, nice.
And I was young.
And now, can you speak Portuguese? A little bit.
Posso falar pouco. Quando fui a Brasil, aprendido pouco com a gente aí.
Sim. O português do Brasil é pouco diferente do de Portugal.
Sim,
Portugal, e o português é pouco diferente.
É muito diferente. Com a pronunciação, creio que é muito diferente.
Sim.
Posso compreender mais o português do Brasil, creio.
Sim, talvez porque há mais conteúdos na internet também. Então, é português que geralmente meus amigos estrangeiros dizem ser mais fácil de aprender.
Sim.
E também de achar language partners, que é parceiros de idiomas.
Ok, sim. E creio que as pronunciações, como a pronunciação do Portugal é mais difícil.
É mais fechado, mais cerrada, mais.
Sim.
Sim. Oh, nice! You can speak a little bit of Portuguese, of course.
Yeah, it's I guess as most language learners, you can understand more than you can speak. But even then, if you turn on the TV, I'll probably maybe understand 30-40%. And if it's in Brazilian Portuguese, I think I'll understand more than the European Portuguese.
Nice. So before we wrap up our episode, we always ask our guest to give a cultural recommendation.
Cultural recommendation.
Yeah. Could you recommend a book, a movie, a TV show, or any cultural thing to our listeners? So is it your time?
I would say, there's not one specific that I have, but nothing beats going to a place. Nothing beats right away I thought Japan is, it's my culture, but it's everything's, it's my life that I've grown up in. But for somebody who's never visited a place like Japan, it's a big culture shock, and you can learn so much within a very short span of time. So travel is really something that I would recommend to absorb things very, very quickly. But don't go with zero understanding. Go with some understanding. Then, whether it's languages or culture, you'll learn very quickly and be able to absorb and enjoy the new environment.
All right. So now it's your time, Tetsu. If you would like to talk a little bit about your social media, your work, it's your time to give a hint to our listeners.
Yes, well, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for anyone who's tuning in right now. If you are interested in learning about raising multilingual kids, then I've got a YouTube channel at Ask Tetsu. So that's my logo and all my social media is at Ask Tetsu. So whether it's Twitter or X, Instagram, Facebook, just Google Ask Tetsu, and I'll be the one that'll pop up at the very top. And you can also find me on LinkedIn if you want. But I use that more for a professional setting. Maybe we could talk about languages and in the professional setting one day if you want, because languages are my bread and butter. I would say. I do have a PhD and an MBA, but I always tell people languages and culture, my cultural linguistic skills trump my PhD and MBA combined by far. My languages have really helped me, grow in my career much more than my qualifications per se. Qualifications get you into the door, but the growth from there is really from the languages and my cultural understanding. And so that's another topic that perhaps we could talk about in another session. So I'm on LinkedIn and all the other social media at Ask Tetsu, or TikTok also, but I'm not on there.
I have one last question for you.
Sure.
Have you organized the Lang Fest? And
yes.
If so, when will you have another Lang Fest?
Yeah, I get that a lot. We've actually put Langfest on pause. The last one was in 2019, just before the pandemic hit, and obviously we couldn't do it during the pandemic. And we've not picked it up since. It's kind of one of those things where you lost your momentum, kind of thing. And I don't know. I mean, I do talk to my co-founders every once in a while, but we've just not come around to finding that drive, and we've all kind of gone off and doing our own thing. So I don't know. I can't. It's not officially dead, but I don't know when it's going to be the revival. We'll have to find some sort of trigger and to make it happen.
So so it was a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
I loved our conversation, and also I'd like to ask you guys to follow Tetsu. It was wonderful, and you can learn more with him.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, it was great. And if you guys are listening or watching us right now, please, if you have any suggestion for our podcast, please send us a message to our social media, diversilingua@gmail.com. And until next time, and I hope I can see you in person, Tetsu, someday.
Definitely. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and best of luck on your channel.
Thank you.
Você ouviu Diversilíngua, podcast idealizado por membros do Clube Poliglota Fortaleza e Clube Poliglota Rio de Janeiro. Siga-nos nas redes sociais, procure por Diversilíngua no Instagram e no Twitter. Para contato, diversilingua@gmail.com.